Hey everybody, welcome to my live stream. Give me just a minute to get it shared to social media and I'll start up the movie. Tonight, I'm going to be watching Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter. Which, if you know anything about Friday the 13th, you know this was absolutely not the last one that they made. But it was supposed to be. Allegedly. Anyways, got the stream pulled up. Let's go ahead and share to social media so my followers can find me. Da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. All right. I pull up Twitter. Okay. Let's go ahead and start the movie. Minimize this. Minimize this. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Pull up the movie. Where the fuck is it? There it is. All right, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, 1984, starring Corey Feldman and a bunch of losers. No offense. You might recognize Crispin Glover. And obviously you're going to recognize Corey Feldman, but it's highly unlikely you're going to recognize anybody else from this movie. If you don't know who Crispin Glover is, he was the dad on Back to the Future. All right, we got a movie. Now, back then, each movie started with a recap of the previous movie, either something like this or just like they would just replay the ending of the previous movie. So the first like 10 or 15 minutes of the movie is just, reminding you of the movie you either forgot or didn't watch. Now, there's some debate among horror fans whether or not Jason was already undead at this point or if he was still alive until the end of this movie. So, I'm not really going to be able to address that. Thank you. In this video. Oh, Crazy Ralph. I wish they hadn't killed Ralph. He should have been the Harbinger in every one of these movies. But there's they made a lot of mistakes with this franchise that I wish they wouldn't have. Just little things that they had done differently would have made it just so much better. Especially by the time they get to Jason Goes to Hell. That movie was a fucking nightmare. Jesus Christ, this is a long fucking intro. It's not just like a recap. It's almost like they're going to just show you scene for scene the whole goddamn trilogy. Motherfuck. So part 3, which came before this, was the first one where Jason had the hockey mask. So if Paramount had stuck to the plan and this had been the last one, we would have had 4 Friday the 13th movies 3 with Jason and only 2 with Jason wearing the hockey mask. So it would have been a totally different franchise had that happened. And I don't think it would have been the pop culture phenomenon it became if this had literally been the true final chapter, if this had been the last one. Like the previous 3 films in the franchise, this one is mostly plagued with this shitty Harry Manfredini music, which I am not a fan of. No disrespect to Harry Manfredini, man is a professional. He does his work, but it just doesn't fit the movie. Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street, Hellraiser, they had phenomenal fucking incidental music and background music and soundtracks, etc. And Friday the 13th had this fucking whatever this is, violins, having a fucking heart attack. Not a fan of it. I wanted some synth or some fucking guitars or something. No, I am not. I'm a caregiver for disabled adults, but I'm not talking about work. So now what we're getting is the continuation of the end of Friday the 13th Part 3. This is the later that night. The truth is, I hated these movies when I was a kid. The first one I watched when I was a kid, I was like maybe 9 or 10 years old. I watched The New Blood, Friday the 13th 7, and I fucking hated it. And then the next one I watched was Jason Goes to Hell, which is by far the worst one in the franchise. So I didn't get into these movies until I was in my 30s. One summer, I was actually living at a lake. Well, I was homeless, but I was camping at the lake because they couldn't evict me because it was fucking public property. And I had I was living in a camper, not a camper, a broken down van that I was using as a camper. And I had my computer, and so I had a hard drive that I had some movies on, and I ended up trading the hard drive to a guy I found on Craigslist who gave me the box set of the Friday the 13th franchise, the Crystal Lake 8 film box set. And so I had a marathon. I binged all 8 movies back to back. Now I also had Freddy's Dead and Jason X and Freddy vs. Jason on DVD at the time. So I just binged the whole fucking franchise. And that was when I realized they're better than I thought they were. Um, 3, 4, and 6 are my favorite ones. I like 2 okay. I can't stand 1. It's too fucking boring. I have mixed feelings about part 5. I hate part 7. I'll watch part 8 if I'm like in a really fucking late 80s cheesy B-movie mood. Otherwise, I can't watch Jason Takes Manhattan because it's so fucking painful to watch. I will never watch Jason Goes to Hell ever again. I'll probably rewatch Jason X if the mood strikes me, and I'm 1,000% going to rewatch Freddy versus Jason again and again because I'm a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan. The original Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984, is my favorite movie of all time. Hello. I can't really know. I don't know how to say your name, but hello. So this is why I think he's already undead at this point, because he just had an axe in the fucking head. He had a machete in the heart in part 2, and now he's in the morgue. They wouldn't have wrapped him up in the blanket if they hadn't checked his pulse. So I maintain he's dead here. I know he comes back to life or gets reanimated in part 6, Jason Lives, when his corpse gets struck by lightning. But that's just a different reanimation. This one is, I believe, I don't know. He just wills himself back to life, I guess. The Thing, you're referring to the original from the 50s or the John Carpenter one? To answer the question, I've never seen the original from the 50s, and I have mixed feelings about the John Carpenter one. I am not a fan of John Carpenter. I don't hate him. I like a couple of his movies, but I am not enamored by John Carpenter like some people. This is that weird pseudo porn scene. It's that I guess aerobics, dancing aerobics or something. I don't know. There aerobics was a big thing in the 80s. So there were a lot of aerobics classes and videos and things. Okay. Yeah, I've never seen it. I've only seen the John Carpenter one from 1980. What is it? 1981, 82, somewhere in there. Which, if it was 82, that was the year I was born. If it was 81, that's before my time. So they're going to get frisky in the morgue next to Jason's dead body. That seems a little suspicious to me. See, he's not even breathing, so he's clearly dead at this point. Because if he had been breathing or had a pulse, they would have took him to the hospital. They wouldn't have taken him to the morgue. So I don't buy that he was still alive at the end of this movie. So I don't accept that Corey Feldman, Tommy Jarvis killed Jason Voorhees. I don't accept that because he's clearly dead in this scene. That's a corpse sitting on that gurney. That is not a man holding his breath. Now, if you're going to ask the question, what brings him back to life? Question mark. Don't dig too deep because we still don't even know if he was even alive at the end of Friday the 13th part 1 because allegedly he drowned, and that was what made his mother go on the murder spree in the first place. So how did he go from a 12-year-old boy at the end of Friday the 13th and 5 years later he's a 30-year-old man? You can't dig too deep in these movies. You just got to go with it. Also, I'm pretty sure this is the same fucking hospital every horror movie was filmed in the 80s that has one employee on staff. Because if you ever watch a horror movie in the 80s, there's these gigantic hospitals that are completely fucking devoid of people. I've been in dozens of hospitals in my life over the years. They're never fucking empty like this. Not even the morgue. But whatever. You know, you just kind of, like I said, you just kind of go with it. So the question is Jason alive or dead at the start of this movie? I contend he's dead. But then the status of what is he? Is he a deadite yet? Is he a ghoul? Is he a zombie? I don't think he becomes a zombie until Jason lives, and he doesn't become a deadite until Jason goes to hell. So what is he right here? I don't know. I guess I would say reanimated corpse, which is technically a zombie. Or if you're going by the Night of the Living Dead, he would be classified as a ghoul. But he's not a flesh eater. So, no, I don't think he's a zombie or a ghoul ever. Even when they call him Zombie Jason, I don't think he's a zombie. For two reasons. One, he never eats flesh. He's not a cannibal. And two, they shoot him in the head in Jason Lives 3 times in the head. And he gets right back up. So he's not a zombie, because if you shoot a zombie in the head, they're done. That's it. Game over. So now we're meeting the start of our cast of characters. Hello, Patrick. We got the mom and the daughter, the teenage daughter. And here we got Corey Feldman playing a nerd. And I want that computer so fucking bad. I don't even know if that's a real computer, but I still want it. And he's going to say a bunch of bullshit gibberish that isn't real, but he says it for the movie, because whoever wrote this movie never touched a computer in their life. Also, I don't buy this 12-year-old is doing fucking Tom Savini masks. I know they want us, they should have dumbed down the masks if they want us to believe this 12-year-old was making them. I just don't buy it. But whatever. I understand it's 1980. What year did this come out? 85. Zaxxon was old hat by 1985. I'm pretty sure that game came out in 81, 82. So who the fuck was still playing that in 85? Maybe I'm confused. I don't know. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I guess it's possible they're a lower income family. Maybe this is the only game he has, I guess. I didn't have a lot of video games growing up, but I don't know, whatever. Here's Crispin Glover, codenamed Deadfuck in this movie, and we're about to find out why. Now, I believe Back to the Future also came out in 1985. So I'm not sure which one of these two movies he did first. And we have another jackass who's never touched a computer in his life. The funny thing about this scene is Crispin Glover knows it's a bit, but he still goes along with the bit anyways. I find that hilarious. Aside from Corey Feldman and Crispin Glover, I don't recognize anybody else in this film from anything else. I haven't checked their IMDb pages, but usually when you do, you come to find out that they did the one movie and that was it. Or maybe they were an extra in some B movie, you know, some Italian movie or something. And that's all they ever, most of these people, that's all they ever fucking did. There's not very many aside from like these two that I mentioned and Kevin Bacon. There's not very many like legit celebrities in these Friday the 13th movies. You know, horror fans are familiar with Kane Hodder. Transformers nerds and cartoon animation nerds know who Susan Blue is. She is the mother in A New Blood, Part 7. But I'm racking my brain to think if there's anybody else of note in any of these movies. And I don't think there is. Now, it's always three. There's only three vehicles in any of these movies. It's either a VW Beetle, a shaggin' wagon, or a station wagon. When I say shaggin' wagon, I mean a fucking, 80s, custom van with the shag carpet, fold out doors. It's one of three vehicles every movie. Now, occasionally you'll get a hillbilly pickup truck. They drove a pickup truck in Part 2 and Part 5, but those were not the kids. Well, one of them was, but there was also a VW prominently featured in Part 2, so there is that. And Part 5, the pickup truck. Oh, no, I guess Tommy Jarvis drives a pickup truck in Part 6. So then I'll add that to the list. There's 4 vehicles featured in these movies. But you never see really anything else driven by the kids. Adults or extras, yeah, sure. But, all right, she just got hers. And now we're having supper. And the kids are going to bitch about its leftovers. Ugh. Now, why would you promise the kids pizza and then cook them leftovers when you have a fucking dog? Give the dog the leftovers and then order the goddamn pizza. Fucking bitch. Oh yeah, he's is it yeah, I know him. I know who you're talking about. The nerdy one, isn't he the one that jumps on the car, or his wife jumps on the car, something like that? I'm probably remembering wrong. Now, I'm going to point this out because it really pisses me off, and it's one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of Kane Hodder. But in Friday the 13th Part 2, Jason kills a dog. Muffy, I believe. Now, I know people say Muffy was at the end of the movie, but that was a dream. So Muffy was dead. We saw her corpse in the woods. In this movie, Jason kills the dog. We see him throw the dog out of a 2-story window, and the dog dies. And Kane Hodder had an instance where he was supposed to kick a dog in one of the later films, and I don't remember which one it was. And he said, no, Jason wouldn't do that. And I was like, the fuck he wouldn't? He's already murdered 2 dogs previously. He would fucking kick the goddamn dog. So Kane Hodder, fuck you for not kicking the dog. Jesus fucking Christ, you pussy. Kick the goddamn dog. Jesus fucking Christ. Michael Myers would eat a goddamn dog. Jason would fucking kick the dog. That pisses me off, and I'm not going to let it go. The other reason why I'm not going to say no respect for Kane Hodder. He's a bulking man. He's a good stunt man. He was great in Hatchet, and he's a legit dude. I mean, like, stunt man. He does good at portraying Jason. But my beef with him is he plays Jason in all the shitty Jason movies. What's that about? His wife jumped on the car. Okay, I knew it was something like that. I haven't seen Police Academy since I was like 6 years old, and I probably shouldn't have watched it when I was 6 years old. And I remember nothing about it except for like flashes. And I'm pretty sure the bits and pieces I remember are bits and pieces of like different movies. Because I know I watched them all as a kid because my dad was a big Police Academy fan and Revenge of the Nerds. So I remember watching them with my dad, but I don't remember them like at all. I remember the guy who makes the funny noises with his mouth, and I remember Steve Guttenberg, who is a straight up asshole, and I don't like him in anything he's in, which is why I don't like the Police Academy movies. And I remember, oh Jesus Christ, what else? Oh yes, absolutely. Freddy wouldn't shy away from killing a dog. Absolutely. I mean, he put children's faces on the dogs in Freddy's Revenge. 12-year-old's going to get a glimpse of something him eyes ain't ready for. And it's my understanding, I don't know if this is true or not, but it's my understanding this was filmed separately, and he's just looking at the wall and reacting to what they're telling him he sees. So he's not really seeing, her tits. But I don't know that 100% because I wasn't fucking there. But obviously, Corey Feldman, we know he saw some tits in his life. So he was a movie star. He was on cocaine. He was fucking, I'm sure he was fucking. So I don't know if it started here, but whatever. This wasn't the start of Corey Feldman. He had already done Gremlins the year before this, and he was doing Goonies, I would say the same time as this, or either right after or right before, but they came out the same year. So again, I don't know which one he was doing at what time, because fucking Freddy also made a dog fire. Oh yeah. So I have a theory about the Dream Master. And of course, male gaze in these movies. We got to put the camera on the girls' butts because, but we never put the camera on the guys' butts. You ever notice that? I know. Another thing you'll notice about these movies, we'll come back to the dog in a second. Another thing you'll notice about these movies is the girl, and it's always a different girl, will get naked and just walk out into the woods all by herself in the middle of the night for no fucking reason. And then, obviously get her throat slit. That happens like too much in these movies. So let's go back to Freddy Krueger for a second. I have a theory about the dog pissing on the ground, bringing Freddy Krueger back to life. So in the Dream Warriors, Amanda Krueger said they had to lay the undead spirit to rest by burying his bones on hollowed ground. Now, obviously, the junkyard was not hollowed ground, but they did consecrate the ground when they buried him. They poured the holy water on the bones, and then laid the crucifix down, and they consecrated the ground, and that made it hollowed ground in that instance, and that trapped Freddy's soul in his bones. That's my theory. So when the dog pissed on the hollowed ground, it desecrated it. Thus, it was no longer consecrated, and that's how Freddy was able to come back to life. Now, I know for a fact the filmmaker, that was not his intention, because when asked about it in interviews, he laughed and said a dog pissed on Freddy's grave and brought him back to life. So he didn't put that much thought into it, but it's up to us fans to fill in the blanks, because to a lot of these filmmakers, especially Renny Harlin, who did The Dream Master, it was just a fucking paycheck. They didn't fucking take the movie seriously. They were just like, give me the money. And we know this because he's talked about it extensively in interviews. For a paycheck. And he had really done much up to that point. And a lot of these movies, occasionally one of these films will get made by a legendary filmmaker, usually by happenstance, who just happens to have nothing else to do that year, or they owe somebody a favor or whatever. But most of the time, these movies, these schlocky B movies, are made by filmmakers you're never going to fucking hear from again. And there we go. All the girls are naked, and it only took them 30 seconds to get there. Those girls were wearing bathing suits, and they still took their tops off. They were already in bathing suits. Why did they take their tops off? Fuck it. Now, the guys will take their shirts off, but You're not going to see dong in these movies. Now, that's not to say you don't occasionally in horror movies. 28 Days Later comes to mind, Cillian Murphy. But most of the time, you get like this. You get an ass crack, and that's it. And you get it for like a split second, and then it's done. But they linger on the boobs almost all the time. And if it's girl butt, they linger on that as well. So here again, Corey Feldman, 11, 12 years old, getting an eyeful of, flesh. And I don't know if he was physically present for that scene or not, but unless it's really good editing, it looks like he's present. Now, I had read the book, Stephen King's novel, Gerald's Game, when I was in 3rd grade. So I hadn't seen a lot of naked boobs by that point, although I was watching horror movies with my dad. He would usually cover my eyes when it got to the skin. But I already had questions about what the fuck is going on by the time I was in 3rd grade, because I had read Gerald's Game, which, first of all, I don't recommend reading that book anyways, but definitely don't let your fucking kids read it. Be better parents than mine were. My parents didn't give a shit what I did. One time I was in 6th grade. I got mad at my parents, and I snuck out and spent the night in the park, and they didn't even know I was gone. I came home the next day, and they thought I was just coming in from a walk early in the morning before breakfast. They didn't know I spent the night in the park, and they didn't even know. And I was just like, yeah, my fucking parents didn't fucking pay attention to us when we were kids. It was the fucking 80s, 90s, back then. I'm not going to say the world was safer back then, because it fucking wasn't, but we were more oblivious back then, partially because we didn't have cable news in the 24-hour news cycle yet. And also because, it was the Reagan era. The government lied to us and told us we were safe. Which, yeah, if you were a rich, white, cisgender, heterosexual male in the 80s, you were relatively safe. But if you were literally anybody else, not so much, especially if you were queer. If you know anything about the 80s and the LGBT community, then you already know about the HIV epidemic that nearly wiped us out. But that's neither here nor there. That's just a fuck you to Ronald Reagan. But he's dead now, so whatever. It doesn't matter. If I was the girl who just got dumped in the water, I wouldn't be friends with that bitch anymore. I would be like, we're done. Because she's fully clothed, and she's wearing, first of all, she's fully clothed, but she's also wearing a sweater. And presumably this is summertime, because this is the next day after Friday the 13th part 3, which is the next day after the Friday the 13th part 2, which took place on Friday the 13th in June something or other, June Friday 13th. So this is probably Sunday the 15th, June. It's fucking middle of summer. Why is she wearing a sweater? I don't fucking know. This asshole also doesn't make sense. He's hiking in the woods, and he makes it out. He's looking for his sister, who was one of the girls killed in Friday the 13th part 2. Which just happened in the timeline of this movie 2 days ago. But he already has a newspaper clipping of her killer. And this is a small town. That newspaper probably only prints once a week. And if they're like any small town newspaper, they wrote if it came out on Friday, they wrote their articles on Tuesday and sent it to the printer on Wednesday so they could pick it up on Thursday and deliver it on Friday. I used to work at a small town newspaper, so I know how it works. So if she died on Friday, that's not going to be in the newspaper until next week's issue. And I guarantee you, the small town as portrayed in this movie does not have a fucking daily paper, even in 1985. They didn't. So that has always bothered me. But this guy's been looking for his sister for 2 days, but he's dressed like he's been out there for years looking for his sister's killer, or months, weeks, whatever. We don't really know. That little trick, by the way, I'm going to go back to that in a second, where he stuck the screwdriver in the solenoid and the car started. That really does work. I used to do that all the time. That actually is a really legit trick on those old cars. Now, it only works if that's the problem the car is having. Obviously, there's a bajillion things that could be wrong with a car. But that is one of the first things you try if the car don't start. The second thing you try is, jump the battery. And if that don't work, then you call a tow truck. Well, the first thing you check is the fuel gauge, obviously, because usually 9 times out of 10, it's sitting there on E, and you're like, fuck. Again, look at those masks. That is professional Hollywood, big budget level masks. There's no way a fucking 12-year-old kid living in the woods with a single mom with one income has the money to produce masks like that in his spare fucking time. Especially this one that we're about to see. Which, by the way, you can watch along. You have to have access to this movie yourself. I can't share the screen for copyright reasons, unfortunately. I do apologize for that. I wish I could, but this thing right here, that is way too advanced for a fucking 12-year-old. I mean, a real 12-year-old making masks, that would be a fucking sock puppet with button eyes. It would be lamb chops at best. In Tremors 2, female gaze. I only saw Tremors 2 once, and it's been like 6 or 7 years. And I don't remember. Is that the one with the ass blasters, or is that Tremors 3? I don't remember. But as soon as I saw the ass blasters, I turned the movie off, and I've never watched another Tremors sequel ever since, because that was the end of the line for me. So allegedly, the story goes, this dance he's doing here, he's actually dancing to, I think it was Back in Black by AC/DC. But that's not the song they're playing because they couldn't get the rights. But I've heard if you play that song over this scene, his dance moves match up with the music better than they do here. But I've never done that. I've never done that because, that's just too much work for a fucking bit. And then this guy comes along and turns off the tunes and replaces it with a slow jam that no one was into, so he can mac on his girl, which is like, okay, he's going to mac on his girl for like 30 seconds and then cheat on her with one of the twins. So he's kind of a scuzz bucket. Okay. At some point in the future, I will go back and try to finish the Tremors franchise, but I got to finish the Hellraiser franchise first, and I haven't been able to get past part 5 because that movie's so goddamn boring. So the guy's like, oh yeah, I forgot, I have a girlfriend I was literally dancing with 30 seconds ago. Like I said, scuzz bucket. Again, they're treating the twins, and there's a line coming up here in a second that will reinforce this, not like people, but like their prizes. Another thing that always confused me about this movie is one of the twins has a disappearing, reappearing British accent. Sometimes she sounds British, sometimes she sounds Boston. I don't know who her vocal coach was, if she had one, or if she was just unsure of what a British accent or Boston accent was supposed to sound like. But considering this movie is supposed to take place in New Jersey, it's close enough to Boston. I would buy somebody in this film having a Boston accent, even though most of these people have California accents. Yeah, I really liked Hellraiser 4. I thought it was a good movie. I don't understand the hate it gets. I understand a lot of people are, oh, Hellraiser in space. I guess it's Jason X, blah, blah, blah. But Jason X is a fine movie too, so whatever. Hot one of the two. They're twins. They're identical twins. How do you determine which one's the hot one of the two? They look identical. So that was a jackass thing for him to say. He loses points as a character for me when he said that. All the nerdy dancing in the world isn't going to replace that for me. Now, I'm fine with these kids not having local accents because they're obviously on vacation. They're tourists. You know, they're not from here. So that makes sense to me. But the locals should have local accents. And I wish Hollywood movies, even B movies, would do a better job at casting locals to the region that they're supposed to take place in. They never fucking do. But it takes me out of, I studied linguistics in college, so it takes me out of the picture because, you know, regional dialects are very well defined in this country. And it's noticeable. It's noticeable when somebody is speaking with the wrong dialect or accent in a movie. I even enjoyed Leprechaun in Space and Critters in Space. I haven't got to Leprechaun in Space yet, and I have only seen the first two Critters, and I'm having a real hard time getting motivated to watch anymore, because I was not a fan of the Critters. I like Critters 2, but Critters 1, I can do without. Again, Scuzz Bucket is cheating on his girlfriend again in front of fucking everybody. And hitting on the girl this dude was dancing with a minute ago. So, like I said, Scuzz Bucket. That's his new name. Now, this is the scene I was talking about. She's walking alone in the woods by herself at night, and she's just going to get naked for no goddamn reason. And then she's going to go for a swim with no clothes on. Obviously, you know, people don't like to swim in their clothes sometimes, I guess. But, like, you know, the way she presents herself to the camera is unrealistic to something someone would do if they were alone in the woods by themselves. But I'm not going to harp on that too much because these movies are gratuitous, not just with the nudity, but also the violence. So you got to take it. You know, you got to. It's all part of the formula. Now this kill coming up here in a second is the third time they do this exact same kill in the franchise. Now, granted, there's only so many ways you can kill somebody, obviously, with a knife or a machete. And there's a lot of quick throat slashes, so that's to be expected. And for a second, let's go back to Michael Myers, The Shape. He has his signature nail them to the wall with a knife move that he does in not every movie, but most of them. So this could just be, I would say, Jason's signature kill, except his mother did it first. So it's not even his signature kill, unless it's just a Voorhees signature kill, which again goes back to, was Jason watching his mother murder the teenagers in part 1? And if so, why didn't he come up to his mom and say, I'm here? Unless he's mute, which he could be. He could very well be mute. But he still could have walked up to her and gave her a hug or something. So that's a major plot hole in this fucking franchise. And I like when interviewed about it, the writer of Friday the 13th Part 2 said he did the time jump so he didn't have to deal with that shit. Because he basically didn't want to fuck with it. And his attitude was nonchalant. He's like, I don't fucking care. I don't fucking know. And there it is, the signature kill, which between the two, I think Jason is a more interesting killer. I can't stand Michael Myers. But between the two, I will give Myers credit. I think his signature kill is way cooler than Jason's kill he just did, because I would rather see somebody get nailed to the wall than the same old fucking stab him through the stomach, through the bed. Because it just, you've seen it once with Kevin Bacon, Friday the 13th, 1980 or 79, whatever year that movie came out. And then we got to see it again every movie. I don't know. Boring. But again, they also do the walk up and slit the throat move in nearly every movie. So, there's only so many ways you can kill someone with a knife or a machete before it gets lame. Unless you're Terrifier, Art the Clown, which we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that scene. But I think that was a saw. I don't think that was a machete. Yes. Friday the 13th Part 2, even though it came out a year after Friday the 13th, in the film, it takes place 5 years later. Which, again, still doesn't make sense because it's 5 years later. Jason was presumably 12 years old when he died in 1957. So he would have been an adult by 1980. Well, let's see. If the first one was 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84. Part 2 would have took place in 84. I'm not going to sit here and do the math, but Jason would have been a grown-ass adult by then, which tracks because he was a grown-ass adult by then. But, again, if he didn't drown, what the fuck was he doing? Why didn't he go home? Why didn't he walk back to camp? What the fuck was he doing hiding out in the woods for 20 years, waiting for his mother to get killed so that he could go on a murder spree to get revenge on the people who killed her? It makes no fucking sense. Like I said, you can't pull the curtain back because you're going to see an old man talking into the microphone, and then you don't believe in the wizard anymore. So now this kill, I'm gonna take back some of the male gaze, female gaze stuff I was talking about a minute ago. He's gonna get a kill right here that is definitely a fuck you to the Dude Bros, which I think is one of the best kills in the franchise. Which I'll call it out when it happens. Again, I'm doing this live right now, but you can always go back and rewatch this tomorrow or whenever, when you have access to the DVD or whatever, presumably. That's the idea anyways. But I'll call out the kill when it happens, because this is one of the, I don't know if I would go so far as to say most original kills in all of slashers, because I haven't seen every slasher made. So I don't know if this is ripping off a movie I haven't seen yet. But I would say it's a pretty original kill based on the amount of slashers I have seen, because at least subsequent slashers have not ripped it off. So I'm still going to call it an original kill until I get proven otherwise. So now he found his girlfriend's corpse, and he's going to go back to the shore, and I'm going to describe the kill for those who are just watching me talk about the movie. He's going to swim up to the dock, and then Jason's going to take a harpoon, stick it in his dick, lift him up, and then pull the trigger. And that's how he dies. Which, again, is a kill I've never seen done in any other movie. Yeah, if you try to make sense of the timeline in the Friday the 13th movies, you're going to give yourself a headache. Probably a migraine. Because by the time we get to Jason Takes Manhattan, it's like 2020, or not 2020, 2001 or something like that. the timeline doesn't make a fucking lick of sense. So it's best to just go with it, not try to make sense out of it. Because again, if this one filmed in 1985 or released in 1985, but it's supposed to be 2 days after Friday the 13th Part 2, released in 1981, but took place in 1984, that means this movie takes place in 1984 as well, presumably. But again, I'm not very good at math, and I've never sat down with a notebook to try to map out the timeline, because I think it's more convoluted than the Legend of Zelda timeline, and I'm not qualified to try to map it out. I would get confused and lost and give up. So now we're back at the farmhouse. Farmhouse? No, this isn't a farm. There was a farmhouse in Part 3. I guess this is just a cabin in the woods, ? And we're going to get the obligatory sex scene, which all of these movies have. Some of them are more gratuitous than others, but this one is going to be on the explicit side, but not super explicit because of the MPAA meddling. Whack. The bed just collapsed, and they're like, fuck it, let's go, let's do it anyways. And now we got we've got some old-timey porn. Again, gratuitous nudity, just for the fuck of it. And all the kids are smoking pot, watching porn, because, that's what you do on a Friday night. Or, well, wait, this would be Sunday night. Okay, so let's back it up for a second. That just confused me. If this is supposed to take place on Sunday, why are they getting to the cabin for the weekend on Sunday night? That doesn't make sense. Don't these kids have school or jobs? And when I say school, I mean college, because these are all clearly 35-year-olds. None of these kids are kids. See here, she's got the almost British accent, and she's going to lose it in the next scene. It's kind of funny. Which it doesn't make sense why she has a sometimes British accent, but her sister never does. Whatever. I don't know if it was like Jamie Kennedy in Scream 2, where he was just like fucking around, or if, like I said previously, she thought she was doing a Boston accent and just didn't know the difference, or if she's a British actress and just gave up trying to hide her accent. I don't know. I don't know enough about this girl and or her sister to know anything about them, because I don't really do that much research into my horror movies. I mean, I do watch documentaries and behind the scenes and special features and commentaries and shit, but like, I'm also bipolar and have PTSD, so like, I can't keep a lot of shit in my head sometimes. So now we have that twin is dead. And again, more nudity. And she's nailed to the wall. Again, ripping off Michael Myers, but they're going to do that. These movies are going to rip off Halloween, and then subsequent Halloween movies are going to rip these ones off, and they're just going to kind of do that back and forth. Pretty much until today, basically. And now we're getting the virgin, who is tired of being a virgin, we'll say. And so she's trying to remedy that situation. And she's trying to be subtle, but she's also not very subtle. But whatever. So it looks like we're going to get 2 sex scenes in this movie. So 2 for the price of 1. Again, going back to the theme of the twins. And we got Stoner And now we're back at the Jarvis house, which again, they don't make it clear if this is where the Jarvises live or if this is their like vacation home, which if this is where they live, then yeah, one single mom, one income. But if this is their vacation home, they're fucking loaded. Because that's a pretty nice house if it's a second home. Or if they're just renting it for the summer, that's also a possibility, but it's not made clear. The twins are British. Okay. That almost makes sense. Except for the one twin has a very obviously British accent and the other one does not. So maybe maybe she just wasn't good at hiding it. Maybe she wasn't as good at hiding it as the other girl. I don't know. Now, this is another thing that pisses me off about the MPAA. They filmed her death in this movie, but it was considered too graphic, so they had to cut it out to get an R rating. But again, if you've fucking seen Human Centipede or Terrifier, then you know the MPAA is full of shit. And they just make arbitrary rules on the fucking fly. Because Terrifier should not have been an R-rated movie. That should have been NC-17 or NA. But it is what it is. The reason why I bring up the mother's death scene being cut from the film is because she just disappears. She just stops being in the movie and they never mention her again. Which, that was where she was going to die. But we don't see anything and we don't get any proof of it. We just have to assume she died. And now, again, she's alone in her bedroom getting naked, even though there's nobody in the bedroom with her. And she's going to stare at herself in the mirror because they do this in every one of these fucking movies. Like she's never seen her tits before. And she's like, huh, what are these? Really? There's a scene in the next movie where a girl literally flashes herself in the mirror and goes, it's showtime, to herself. That always bothers me too, because it's like, who the fuck is she flashing? That bright red hat is very outdated because it takes on a whole new meaning in today's political climate, but we don't need to get into that. Another thing, following this movie, just to jump ahead a little bit, in the sequels, Tommy Jarvis comes back for the next two movies, but his sister's never mentioned again. So we don't know what happened to the sister. Did she abandon Tommy? Or did she just go off to college and start her own life? Or did Tommy kill her at the end of part 5? Or part 4, this one. I don't know. It's never addressed. Also, speaking of which, Tommy Jarvis just falls off the face of the earth too at the end of Jason Lives, which is another thing that bothers me. Because it's like he was the star of 3 movies in a row and then never spoken of again. Now, again, it makes sense within the context of the timeline of the movies. The time jump between 6 and 7 is significant enough. Tommy Jarvis wouldn't have any reason to be in part 7 because, you know, too much time has passed. Why the fuck would he be there? He's already moved on with his life. He thinks Jason's dead. Now, this here bit coming up in a second, I'll call it out when it happens, doesn't make sense because this is the woodsman Harry Bush hillbilly dude's tent. I don't know what the fuck you call it. I'm just gonna call him hillbilly dude. This is his tent, and he's going to stick a machete in it and cut it up here in a second, even though that's his fucking tent. Just because she's in it, is he doing that to scare her? Or did he really think Jason was in the tent? Why didn't he look in the tent first? There, he just cut his own fucking tent, even though it was unzipped. He literally could have just bent over and seen who was in there. So that's another one that confuses me. And this is where we're going to get the backstory of what he's doing in the woods. Well, after the, spooning right here. And the nerd asking if he's a dead fuck. Because apparently he's obsessed with that. Because his friend got it in his head that his girlfriend dumped him because he couldn't please her. Which, again, there's literally no proof of that. It's just his friend saying it. And now we're back to the stoner watching the old-timey porn again. And Crispin Glover's going to go get a drink of wine from the kitchen. And one of the most iconic deaths in the entire franchise. Iconic for two reasons. One, because it's Crispin Glover, and two, the originality of the death. And there's the corkscrew you were asking for, right in your hand. And whack. Cleaver in the forehead. Pretty cool. Not the greatest kill, but just bloody enough. And we're going to get teleporting Jason. Jason started teleporting in this movie too, so I'm going to go ahead and call Ghost, maybe. He's not a zombie. I think, well, he becomes a deadite later, we find out, but I think at this point he's probably a specter of some sort. He's definitely supernatural. Not just because he can fucking teleport, but also because he's superhuman strong, and he was very obviously dead in the morgue. And here he is, again, bursting through a window, not affecting him whatsoever. Pretty gnarly death, but she could have survived that. That wasn't that big of a fall. And we've seen other, final girls take bigger falls than that in other movies, like Scream, for example. So, she could have survived that. We don't know she's dead. So if I was dead meat doing a kill count, I wouldn't put her on the kill count. Okay, so now we got some newspaper clippings. Why would somebody steal Jason's body? I've never understood that rationale. So now we have Tommy, Corey Feldman, walking around the house with a flashlight, trying to get the power on. He's going to flip switches or plug fuses or whatever he does. because I guess we established earlier he's a whiz. Because something about a bypass on the computer and the solenoid trick on the car. So I guess that establishes he knows his shit. And we're going to get an undeserved jump scare. Oh, no, we didn't get a jump scare. Coors. So product placement. And again, Jason is still in the kitchen. So how did he have time to teleport to the second floor outside, throw the girl out, and then get back to the kitchen right where he was? I don't know. This movie doesn't make sense. So now we're getting the reverse Psycho shower scene where Jason's going to kill the naked dude in the shower instead of the girl, which was deliberate. The filmmaker said that was deliberate. It was supposed to be a reverse Psycho. But we got to have the sex scene first. So I lost count. Is this the second or third sex scene of the movie? I don't remember. How much do you... Goodbye, jackass. Cleaning up the chat real quick. We got some assholes. And he's dead. Knife in the back of the head. Not super original, but not overused. So good enough. I'll take it. We're going to have a major relationship faux pas here in a second. Because she just lost her virginity and she's already going to declare her love to him, even though she's known him all of 5 hours at most. Maybe. It's not very clear. Also, let's go back to the timeline for a split second. If the murders that happened in Friday the 13th Part 2 took place on Friday and was reported on the news Friday evening, which it was, as seen in Friday the 13th Part 2, or excuse me, Part 3, it was already reported, and they already know about Jason's body being found at the morgue, blah, 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 which means they already knew the events of Friday the 13th Part 3 have taken place. That's like something like 20 to 30 murders in the span of 24 hours. Why the fuck did these kids decide to stay here instead of say, you know what, let's come back next weekend or something after they've put the guy away? Doesn't make sense. Now, even though I'm calling this the reverse Psycho because Jason's about to kill the naked dude in the shower, he doesn't stab him to death with a knife. He's going to do something very Jason-esque, which I'll describe as it happens. And this guy's going to make I'm going to call it a homophobic joke, but it might not be, but I'm going to call it that anyways. And then he's going to shove his fist into his head and crush his skull against the wall, which is a pretty good kill, but we don't see enough of it because, again, the MPAA shenanigans. I don't remember how she dies. So I mean, I've seen this movie a dozen times, but I've seen them all a dozen times, and they're fucking forgettable. They're not very memorable movies. You're very little plot, major ass plot holes. You're mostly here for the kills, but they all bleed together. So I apologize for that. And he's dead. And we're gonna get the is this where we get the chase scene? The first chase through the house, running down the stairs for once instead of up the stairs. But also can't open a door because nobody in horror movies knows how to open doors. Oh, and she's dead. That was quick. I guess that's why I forgot about it, because it was so forgettable. Again, we have a noise at the door, and he's just walking down to investigate instead of running the other direction. No, she's dead. We didn't see it, but we kind of did. This right here also bothers me. How does Jason know to sabotage the telephones? If he drowned when he was 12 and lived in the woods for 20 odd years, he wouldn't know what the fuck a telephone is. And he definitely wouldn't know how to sabotage a telephone. But he does it in every one of these movies. So I don't know. Whatever. It is what it is. Also, it's raining because it's raining in every one of these movies. Even though they all three take place over the same weekend, that's a lot of fucking rain for 3 days. Now, to be fair, it is New England. I don't know what the rain patterns are like in June in New England, so I can't really call it out because I don't know. So it could be, I guess, believable. But again, I don't really know. The broken film projector is still clicking away because nobody's turned it off yet. He's about to, I believe. Or is he just going to walk on past it? I guess he's just going to walk on past it. All right, whatever. That's odd. Now, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the first film in the franchise where Jason decoratively displays the bodies. Oh, the film projector just turned itself off, or the power went out in the house. I guess the power went off because he's going down to the basement to check the fuse box, allegedly. Now, what happened to that machete he was rocking earlier? Now he's walking around with a switchblade. That ain't going to do shit against a guy the size of Jason, whether he's a ghoul or not. But, you know, I guess he decided, nah, I don't need the machete. Let's go with switchblade. No wonder he dies, because him not very smart. Also, how would Jason know to turn the power off and hide in the basement by the fuse box? How would he fucking know that? Again, I don't fucking know. Maybe he met Crazy Ralph in the woods and he taught him. There goes the dog. And she's going to walk around the house in the dark, but at least she's got clothes on, so I'll give her credit for that. You know, she didn't get naked for no good reason. And there goes the dog. Now, okay, did the dog jump out the window or did Jason throw the dog out the window? Because if Jason threw the dog out the window, that means he's upstairs right now. And how's he going to get down to the basement here in a second? I don't know. Again, teleportation is the only explanation. Because why would the dog jump out the window? Dogs don't fucking do that. That's not normal dog behavior. So, whatever. So now we got Tommy reading the Jason articles, the newspaper clippings. Murderer strikes cafe, blah, blah, blah. All these clips. And it's like, this is all shit that happened 2 fucking days ago. And those are like old ass newspapers. So how are these old ass newspapers reporting on something that happened 2 fucking days ago? Doesn't make sense. I'm going to call that out every time. I'm going to chalk that up to the writers having never worked in a newspaper. They don't know shit about how newspapers work, I guess. And now she's going to start discovering the bodies. Or at least there's blood, but the body's missing. Which the body was there a minute ago. So where'd the body go? Oh, there's the body. Nailed to the wall. Again, decoratively displayed. That wasn't how the body was left a minute ago. And if you watch, she's going to go down. Oh, she has the machete. Okay. That answers my question from earlier. And he fell through the stairs because I guess that happens in every horror movie. And Jason's downstairs in the basement waiting for him, which he had to be there the whole time. Again, how do you get upstairs to throw the dog out the window? Whatever. Teleportation. It has to be. So he's got to be a specter. He's not a zombie. He's very obviously not a living man. And he's not the shape from Halloween. Why is she going downstairs? She literally just watched him get murdered. What is she going to do? Literally, what is she going to do? He's dead. And you met him like 45 minutes ago. Why are you crying? You don't even know who the fuck he is. And again, how did Jason have time to display the bodies? Watch this. Open the door, and she's on the porch, but she was thrown off the window. But she was thrown onto the car. He's nailed to the door. And instead of walking through his body, I guess, which, I probably wouldn't do, she's going to climb out the window. Because they always climb out the window. That's another horror trope. And running in the wind. Running in the rain. Jason is his own kind of undead. Yeah, he's definitely not a zombie. That much I can say for sure. And like I said, later he becomes a Deadite. So I guess we could retcon the franchise and say he was always a Deadite if we have to. And they have weird, unexplainable powers that change from movie to movie. And again, he went through all that trouble to set up the body and then he just ripped it down. Did he set that body up there just for her? Like, is he playing with his victims? And why would he do that? Like, literally, why would he? Because he's going to kill her anyways. And then there goes another body through the window. He dead. Dismemberment could kill him. I don't know. So in Jason Goes to Hell, they do blow him up and he's, like you said, dismembered into pieces. and it takes them eating his heart to transfer his soul into the new body. So yeah, I guess I would buy that. But the other way to kill a deadite is to bury them in under the dirt, and he's been buried underground more than once. So I guess maybe he isn't a deadite. Or maybe he's like, maybe he's the chief deadite. Or some, I don't know. Maybe he's their, I don't know, advanced guard or something. Or some, I don't know. Just looking at the shit he has in his room, I'm calling rich family. This family has money. That is not the kind of stuff a poor family would possess. So I'm going to assume this is their vacation home, not their regular home. Which we have no idea what the regular home is. But if that's the case, why are they driving around in a beat up piece of shit car that needs repairs? So maybe not. I don't know. And he just got the Stu Macher treatment. Another reason why hashtag Stu is alive. Bring back Stu. God damn it. That's possible. You're right. They did mention that he does regenerate in Jason X, because that's why they brought him to the spaceship, to study him. Which, why would they need to study him when they have nanobots? Never mind. Let's not poke holes in that movie. Oh, no, wait. That was in the past they were studying him. So maybe that's how they got the nanobots, was his blood? I don't know. I haven't seen Jason X in a while. So she's going to, even though she knows there's dead bodies all over the other house, she's just going to run back to the other house instead of, I don't know, the car or the general store up the street or into the woods or fucking anywhere. No, just back to the other house where all the dead bodies are. And up the stairs. Again, dead end. What is she going to do? Jump out the window like the dog did? Yeah. I guess so. She's just going to swan dive out the window, which, if she can do it and not die, why did it kill the twin from earlier? I don't know. She landed harder than the twin did, and she's still alive. And she went out head first, but the twin died. I don't know. I'm going to call. Well, no, the twin was dead because we saw her body on the porch a minute ago. So never mind. Because we know that wasn't the first twin because she was nailed to the wall. All right, so I guess she was dead. I take it back. But she's just going to get up like nothing happened as soon as she gets her legs. I've never understood where Tommy got the idea to shave his head and pretend to be Jason. But we're going to go with it, I guess. Yeah, but where was he supposed to go? He's 12 and you're in the fucking woods. Whatever. Again, she's got a machete. He's unarmed. Why can't she fucking... There she goes. She got him in the hand. Like, just fucking cut his throat, chop his head off, do something. No, just chop his middle finger off, I guess. Right in the chest, which that's like the second or third time he's had a machete in that chest. So he's very dead here. Because Ginny put a machete in his chest at the end of part 2. And he just like got up and walked away like nothing happened. Which he wouldn't have done if he was a living man. I don't remember how Jason X ends. So I'd have to go back and rewatch it. But I remember at the time thinking it was a pretty definitive death. But I don't know. I'd have to go back and rewatch it. Now, they have established in previous movies that Jason has the mind of a child, so I guess it makes sense he would fall for this. But again, let's back it up a second. If he's got the mind of a child, how does he know to cut the fucking power line and the phone cable? And he is severely ass deformed here. And if you look at his skin, he's a corpse. That is not living tissue. Yeah, he's bleeding right here, but just look at his face when they show it again. He's fucking dead. That is not living man. That is not an alive man. Ew. All right, I'm going to call that gross. Oh, God. Cringe. Yeah, they left that in, but they had to cut like every fucking thing else out of this movie. All right, people. Like I said, the MPAA makes no fucking sense. And again, that very definitively killed him. It just cut his brain in half. But he's not dead yet. Even though that very definitively killed him if he wasn't already dead. And there he is twitching. How is he fucking twitching? I don't fucking know. Is he a chicken? And Tommy's going to finish him off for good. Allegedly. Which, again, is why they called this the final chapter. Now, they were setting this up. Tommy was supposed to become the new killer in the subsequent films. Put on the mask and become the new killer. But they abandoned that plot point and took it in a different direction, which I have mixed feelings of. Because obviously we wouldn't have got quote unquote zombie Jason otherwise, but also Tommy wouldn't have been a very good killer. Maybe his brain was so small the blade missed it. Nah, that's a possibility. The doctors are saying he's going to be just fine, but if you've seen part 5, we know that's not true. But again, this was supposed to be the end of the franchise, so they didn't have plans for part 5 yet, which is very obvious if you watch part 5. I don't even think they had a fucking script for that movie. I think they just showed up and said, all right, action, and made it up as they went. Because that movie makes no sense. There's little baby Jason dressed up like Tommy. And we're going to get the creepy shot here in a second, which again is supposed to signal to the audience that Tommy is affected. But again, they do literally nothing with that. It goes nowhere. And that is the end of the Friday the 13th franchise, according to the producers of Paramount, before this movie made boatloads of money and they changed their mind. Because, this franchise made a shit ton of money. Even though Paramount treated it like a fucking redheaded stepchild. They're like, yeah, we'll take your inheritance, but at the same time, we do not acknowledge your existence. If you're digging up corpses on a cemetery at night, you're not fine. You're absolutely right. Even before we get to that point in A New Beginning, he's hallucinating Jason. Even when, yes, I know there's a copycat killer, but also he's seeing Jason at times where the copycat isn't or couldn't be present. And that's the end of the movie. I know, modern times we're trained to sit through the credits for the post-credit scene, but very rarely did they have post-credit scenes back then. The only one I can think of off the top of my head is Masters of the Universe, which was a stinger setting up a sequel that unfortunately never happened because Canon Pictures went out of business, and he throws people around like he's Chuck Norris. Yeah, where does Jason get this superhuman strength? They never explain it. But at the same time, where does Michael Myers get the superhuman strength to pick somebody up with his left hand and stick them through the wall with a butcher's knife with his right hand, using a blade that is not long enough to go through a human body, let alone nail a body to a wall? Like I said, you just go with it. You can't question everything in these movies. But anyways, I like this one. Out of the 12, 13 movies or so in the franchise, I rank this one pretty high. One of the better ones. Definitely rewatchable. More rewatchable than some of the others. That's the end of the movie. So thanks for watching, and thank you for commenting, and stay cool.